he is going to, what white says is that he's going to develop his queen's bishop, or sorry, his king's bishop, my apologies, and he's going to give himself the possibility of having a 4 pawns to 3 central majority, or queenside majority, should black play pawn takes pawn at this moment. Usually a good idea here is to preserve the tension, and so knight f3 is, or knight c6 is played here. Okay. So I want you guys to notice also that the way of playing with c5 and then bringing the pawns up is giving us a bit of a reverse opening. You see, white has adopted a black formation. Knight f6, bishop, or knight f3, bishop f4, and then the pawn to e3. And that's a similar formation that black can adopt with bishop f5, knight f6, and e6. So essentially, white wants to play a reversed opening, and black is falling in with this course of action. Now, the London is all about control of the dark squares in the center, and so we continue building the pawn triangle. This is pretty well the way to go, and this is probably what you may find you get in the tournament that we're going to play later on. Now, this is again an important juncture, because what you want to do, since white is going for dark square control, it might be a good idea to play bishop g4 and pin the knight and start to take off the knight, which makes your task of playing e5 a little bit easier. Okay? One of the drawbacks, of course, will be that you'll leave your b pawn unguarded, and so white may take the opportunity to play queen b3 some point in the future. Now, e6 aims at a simple thing, right? Since c3 has been played, a clever situation has emerged. White wants to take a pawn on c5, so he's actually attacking the pawn and threatening to play b4 and keep his pawn. This is all possible. Many of these variations is because white has a tempo in hand. I was talking to Brighton earlier, and he said he prefers e4 to d4 because e4 is a little bit sharper and a little bit faster. d4 is a bit slower, and this occurs because the d pawn is guarded by the queen, so doesn't feel threatened so much, and so the game develops at a much slower pace. Anyway, c3 threatens to capture. White threatens to take the pawn next move, and so that's why e6. Now, of course, unfortunately, is the c8 bishop now finds itself dissatisfied with the course of events because the pawn's at e6, which means the bishop is shut in. Okay? So from the point of view of white gaining strategically, usually what happens is after d4, d5, c4, black is forced to play e6 and shut in the bishop right away. So what white has got here is he's got black to shut in his bishop because of this variation being chosen, and hasn't had to play c4 to force that. So white has quite a bit more flexibility. Now, this is again a crucial juncture. Should I play bishop d3, or should I play bishop e2? Right. The thing is when black has played e6, he has signaled that the bishop is not coming out to g4 to pin knight, and as a result, increase the control of the e5 square, which means that the bishop doesn't have to be developed yet, right? So it could, if the bishop went to g4, it would need to decide if it's going to go to e4 to defend, e2 to break this pin. But since you said, oh, you're not playing bishop g4, then black says, okay, good, I'll continue with my plan, preserve the placement of my bishop. I don't know if I want it to go to d3 or if I want it to go to b5. So I'll do what I need to do first and play knight of d to d2. Okay, and now black says, okay, dude, I've mentioned in many classes previously that it's important to know your measures of activity. So here we look at the fact that white is increasing step by step his activity of his pieces. And the bishop at f4 cuts across several dark squares. So white takes it upon himself to neutralize the effect of this by playing bishop e6. And now we have an important situation. As you can see, there are a whole swath of lines white can play, but by far the most is to play bishop g3. Gelfand in the past has experimented with both, moving the bishop to b3 or e2 or b5, and saying, go ahead and take my bishop, enhance my control of the e5 square, and open the file for me. What will I take for that? Well, unfortunately, I'll have some double pawns, and I'll have potentially after pawn takes pawn, I'll have a nice all-in. However, I'm saying that I'll have better control of the center, and this is more important. However, toss-up is between bishop g3, which is by far the most popular in this particular line. Bishop d6. The reason you don't want to do that is you don't want to help your opponent develop his piece. Playing bishop d6 and after queen b6, the e5 move is coming really fast. And once black establishes e5, then he will be threatening either to play e4 and after pawn takes pawn, then unfortunately there will be some difficulties regarding stakes. So white has a black position and black has a white position, right? And this makes the opening strategically complex. By black having a white position, he's down a tempo, but he has a position that could arise from the normal queen gambit decline. d4, d5, and knight f3, and c4, knight c6, and e3, and then bishop c2. So essentially, black has the same thing, but he's down tempo. All right. So what's white saying? Anybody? What's white saying when he says, "I want to play bishop c2"? What's white saying when he does this? Okay, what he's saying is, I'm not going to help you develop the pieces, so no bishop takes bishop. I'm going to keep my control of e5, and when you take on g3, you'll open the h file, and I will hold over you the threat of bishop d3 and a future king subject. So black again preserves attention, and so plays by far the most popular is castle. However, bishop g3 does have 184 games. And interestingly enough, at your level, what do you mean, my level? The level below expert, 2000 player, you will play to double the pawn. Okay? And as you can see by the statistics over here, okay, whoops, I just wanted to highlight this. In this line, it's quite dry. So if you want to get a stable position and control activity, then playing bishop check g3 is the way to go. So what black is saying when he does play bishop g3 is he's saying, I'm not afraid of any h-file attack that you might get. Because remember, guys, if you say with bishop g3 hg, if you say that I'm going to gain initiative over there, you're also saying that the king is going to stay in the center, the white king is going to stay in the center, or he's going to go onto the queen side. And the reason black plays bishop g3 quickly is because he wants to quickly advance in the center. However, black says, you know what? I'm scared of any h file attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to castle first. Okay, so we see an interesting thing going on here, an interesting battle, dance, what have you. Black's following the basic classical principles. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to castle my king. I'm going to organize the fight. I'm going to keep tension in the center and be able to play pocket pawn. And if you dilly-dally too long, I'm going to try and take advantage of your centralized king. For this, I need my rook. Therefore, white says, you know what? I'm not going to help you develop, and I'm going to go for a potential e4. So a strong point has been built along here. And so after I complete my development, I'm going to put 2 pawns abreast, 2 pawns side by side on the 4th rank, and force complication. Since I will be better developed than you, remember, my rooks are going to be connected after I move my queen, whereas your rooks are yet to be connected and placed on open pawn, whereas my rooks naturally know where they want to go, possibly e4, possibly e1. And I'll begin to seize the initiative. In these situations, black does not want to surrender its center unless he absolutely has to. So white isn't threatening e4 yet. He's preparing it, and he's preparing to castle. And now we see as the most popular move is of these games in this variation is b6. So what black is saying is, you know what? I'm going to keep the tension and put my bishop on b7, which indirectly through the knight. So I'm going to do this, put the bishop here, and there's X-ray action on the e4 square, even though the knight is in the way. So b6 seems to be the most popular. What's the idea of the second most popular move? What's the idea of queen e7? The idea here is to play for e5 type of thing and preserve the possibility of developing the bishop along the c8 that we do that. Queen e7 follows a very clear principle outlined by Emmanuel Lasker, or explained by Emmanuel Lasker, where he said only play as many pawn moves as are necessary to develop the pieces. Okay, so the bishop at c8 is all ready to come out. So I'm not going to do the b6, bishop b7, and then have to move my knight somewhere, and then have him, have to fight for the e5 square with one less piece, right? Because in order to activate the b7 bishop, I have to move this knight at c6. And once I move said knight at c6, I weaken my control over the e5 square. So what I want you guys to be aware of is in all openings, each move signals an idea of what it is you want to do in order to increase the activity of your pieces. Now, earlier on, I mentioned the measures of activity. And the measures of activity are controlling squares in your opponent's hand, controlling more squares after you make a move than you did before you made that move, restricting the opponent's pieces, and of course, attacking the opponent's pieces. These are all measures of activity. Okay? And all chess openings and all activities in general, when you're playing chess, are aimed at increasing your activity because more is better. I don't know, it's a principle of life, what have you. But acquiring more of something good or something desirable is something that you should strive for when you play. So activity and its increase is desirable. And because of the way that the pawns have been placed, e6, e5, the c8 bishop is wondering, how am I ever going to get after? Therefore, queen e7 is aimed at signaling, hey, you know what, I'm going to play e5. And when you take in the center, pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, bishop takes knight, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop, my queen will be on e5 and I'll have a pawn on the fourth rank. So my position will be much more active. And I'll know where to put my rooks. One on the semi-open E file and one on the D file. And then I will be able to move my pawns forward and increase my activity. Okay, the idea of rook E8, again, the same thing. Now, there's a principle that says you should develop your smaller pieces before the bigger pieces. Thus, rook E8 would come into consideration possibly before queen E7, right? Because the queen could swing to the queen side. And it's possible that the queen is too valuable a piece to be exposed in the center. You should realize that after, for example, queen e7 and castle, and black playing e5, after all the exchanges, putting the queen on e5, white will play knight f3 and hit the queen, and the queen will have to run away up the center. So we reach a sort of double-edged position. So what's the idea of rook e8? Simple. I just want to do the same thing as previously, have all the exchanges occur, but my rook will be hit, and it will be less sensitive than the queen, obviously. I'll still have to move it, but that's what I want to do, is move into center and preserve the options of the queen. h6. This is a little bit more subtle. What this aims to do is preserve the possibility of playing bishop g3 and crippling the pawns. Therefore, I'm not moving my rook at e8, and I'm not moving my queen. I want to take on g3, but I don't want you to be able to have potential attacks based on bishop knight g5 or bishop h7. cd4 is asking for a clarification of the situation in the center and has possibilities of placing the rook on the open file or aiming for a minority attack. a6 says, you know what, I want to play b5 with an aggressive placement of my pawns, and I don't want to see any bishop to knight 5. Bishop e7 is a very strange move, and as you can see from the stats down here, that black isn't doing that well. And it's pretty sharp, but it's sharp for white, only 13 games. And finally, bishop g3, which says, okay, I'll take on g3, but this just helps white develop his pieces. And again, this has a pretty good scoring record. Let's see, can I enlarge my screen? Yes, I can. There you go. So you can see that there's 44, 22, and 33. So bishop g3 is okay, but not, oh, sorry. I thought it was bishop e7, knight e7. It doesn't seem consistent, and only 13 games, and white does fairly well after knight e7. And it's logical that white should, should be doing well, because of the fact that the battle is for the e5 square, and you're taking the person away from that, so there should be some problems here. All right, so off to b6. Okay. This is a very, okay, here's what happens, right? One of the things that you guys should get into the habit of doing is the consequences thinking. I always preach this, yeah, consequences, blah, 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 right? Anyway, consequences thinking says, what was the last move? Oh, b6. What does it do? Starts to c pawn. opens the white squares for the bishop on c8, and leaves the knight on guard. Okay, it's time to gain some sort of advantage by advancing in the center and attacking with the. Now, the idea is I'm going to gain a tempo. You're going to either take, and each capture on e5 has its own disadvantage. The thing is you have given me an opportunity after knight to establish what is called a Pillsbury knight. Usually the Pillsbury knight appears with the bishop on c1 and the pawn at e3. It's part of the Stonewall formation, which means that there's a pawn at f4 supporting this knight. However, there's a bishop at g3 supporting this knight entry. So, well, what do you want to do when you put the Pillsbury knight on e5? Either make an exchange, bishop takes, pawn takes, or bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes. And I will change the pawn structure and gain some space in the center and get rid of my dark bound bishop, depending on what I do. But I also want to play f4 if you don't take. So what happens is I get a Stonewall formation with my bishop on the outside of the pawn chain. It's no longer on c1. It's on g3. And from g3, it can move to h4. And from h4, it will be outside of the pawn chain, attacking the knight and pinning the knight at f6, thus fighting for the white squares. So I'll have the best of both worlds. I'll have a strongly supported knight on e5. I'll have strongly active pieces. And after I castle, I'll be able to possibly play f4 and 5. So if we look at the stats, we find that black preserves the tension overwhelmingly. He says, no, I'm not going to take, and go ahead, you can take and enhance my control of the e4 square. You can take and waste time playing knight f3 and knight e5. Also, I want to put my rook at c8. One other thing you guys should be aware of is that knight e5 also wants to ask for the knight to come to f3. However, having the knight to come to f3 is going to mean that f6 can move forward to e5. So just some things to consider. Okay, what is guiding your choice of moves is the increase in activity of your pieces. So that's why knight e5 is played, and that's why bishop b7 is played. And all of a sudden, we have a whole schwack of possibilities. So f4, as I said, is aimed at supporting the knight at e5. But in this database, 136 games, it seems from the chess.com database that black is, it's almost a 50-50 situation. In fact, black is, let me enlarge the screen here. Black is doing better than white after f4. So while f4 is desirable from the point of view of preserving the knight at e5, it seems to give black a bit much. What about castles? Well, again, black is doing quite well. Queen b1, okay, only 10 games and a 50-50 type situation there. So it seems in this position after bishop b7, what white would need to do is be pretty well prepared and be careful about playing what seem to be normal moves. So one of you might be thinking, well, if normal moves, f4 and castles, seem to give black the advantage, then I should stay away from this variation, right? Because this is an awful lot for me to remember that after bishop b7, I should, figure out something else to do other than f4 and castle. That is highly, highly undesirable to be in a situation where when you play normal moves, black gets the advantage. Not a good thing. type of thing. What this might suggest is that previous moves might not be the thing to do. So essentially what we're doing here by using the London system as the opening that we're looking at this week is we're also figuring out how to ask questions of the moves that are presented in the database. So here we've gone through, just playing just normal moves and asking a question, being aware that the person wants to activate his pieces. That's what they're doing. And so these are the questions that I should ask when I'm playing. And I should ask these questions of all openings when I'm looking for an opening to play. What does the opponent want to do? The objective of all openings is to activate your pieces and to ask questions so as to make sure that as you go down the database and the moves and you look at the stats, you make sure you ask some questions as to what it is you should be doing. So right here, we've gone to a position where white's about to make some normal moves. Castles is a normal move here, and it seems to lead black to a really strong position. F4 seems like a normal move to reinforce my Pillsbury Knight, but again, black seems to get a good position, though not as bad as castle. However, I'm playing two normal moves, and black is getting a better position. Therefore, I need to go back and have a look. So how far do I go back? Well, let's go to bishop d3, which is a pretty normal situation here. And we find that the position is already close to being quite balanced after this move. 37, 31 with a lot of draws. So this might be where you go, and then you may have to consider maybe playing bishop takes bishop, queen e2, queen c2, a3, some of those other moves type of thing. What if we go back to bishop g3? We find that white seemed to be doing okay here. And black, right here, 1,584 games, 40% to 20. Let's open this up. So here we are, bishop g3 saying, go ahead, I have options. And black plays a normal move. And white has a 40% score. So this is great. Castles is like a bad move for you. So you just made a bad move, so how can I keep things going in my favor? Bishop d3 is the way to go. And but we see that bishop d3 sort of starts to balance out here. 37, 30, with a lot of draws. So this might be where you now load some games and have a look around and see what it is you like or what you may like or may not like right here, type of thing. So then you'd go over to master games, my games, other players. So you would say master games and master player name, and then you would type in who is playing this position. And you would go over here. I don't know, you could put in Carlson. Carlson play these positions? I don't know. A-R-L-S-E-N. Okay, and it's searching. So, oh, okay, my computer's sappy. So we'll just exit this for now. Hopefully this doesn't mess things up for going forward. Oh no. No. My computer's going to shut down. I'm asking it to do too many things. manage the screen share, manage Zoom, and search the chess.com database. Okay, you don't need to see me doing this, so I'll stop the share. And I'll hide that. I'll reload. So, one of the things that is occurring, has anybody been played in any over the board tournaments? Now that COVID is over, I know we have something starting at the Calgary Chess Club. I noticed that in the US, there have been a couple of major tournaments starting. Have any of you had the chance to play over the board? No? Okay. Well, we're starting over the board playing Calgary tonight at the Calgary Chess Club. So Jonathan Wu will be playing there. All right. Am I going to try this again? No, I don't want to bore you guys with this thing here. All right. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put in the moves that we played. You guys can help me put them in. So let's see, we'll go backwards. Okay, so bishop f4, and then we'll do the knight f6 thing. Then we'll do the knight f3, and then we'll do the c5, and then we'll do the e3, and then we'll do knight c6, and we'll do c3, and then we'll do e6, and then we'll do knight b to d2, and bishop d6, bishop g3, and right here, we see from this database that castles does pretty good. Bishop g3 is still good for white. So we'll do castles and bishop d3, which is where we left off. And we'll go and search. Okay, and see, look at that. Same as the chess.com database. b6, queen e7, rook e8, h6, all these things here. Okay. All right. So, notable games is Byrne versus Marshall, right up here. Oh, yikes. Roy, you have to help these people out. Sean, we have somebody asking for the link for the tournament. Is that right? Is that what you're asking for, Jeffrey? Okay. Okay, so here we are. What we can see is that we've got the same order of moves: b6, queen e7, rook e8. Question in the chat. Oh, I'm not. I'm just using the. I'm just screen sharing. I'm not using any particular study type of thing. Jeffrey. Okay. All right. So b6 again. We got queen e7, rook e8, h6, cd4. So all the same moves as were in the chess.com database. Okay. So so this is our position. I'm going to click here, search database for this position here. So hopefully it won't crash. Still loading. The wheel of time is spinning around up there. Oh, interestingly enough, those of you who read science fiction fantasy, the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan is supposed to be pretty good. Big, thick books, stuff like that. Although, do you guys read anymore? I know. Roy, what are these strange questions? Okay, we see we have 16 games from this position. Or, sorry, 16 pages. And these are the first 25 games of 388 games in this database from this position. So you can, using this database, trace, this is free. Okay, I subscribe to it largely because of the fact that it costs $25 to get, for a year, to get access to a lot of games. Well, Roy, you have a chess.com account and you have this one here. Yeah, there are different aspects of each database that I like. So I don't find it a problem to pay some cash, in order to get access to this database without commercials. The problem is this database is free, but if you use the free feature, you will get tons of commercials. And commercials are very annoying. So that's why I go and pay a few dollars and free myself of that problem. Okay, so we can see that this opening was played according to this database stats, Mason versus Mackenzie, 1883 in London. And perhaps this is why you get the London system. I don't know. Actually, the reason it came about and gets the name the London system is because of the fact that Lasker used this opening against Ray T in a London tournament. Can't remember which one. But, even though Mason and Mackenzie played this before Lasker, at least Lasker doesn't show up here. Lasker was world champion around this time. Steinitz and Lasker. Yet, Mason and Mackenzie are the first ones playing this. Well, usually a big name that is successful with a particular opening will, that'll be either the individual who plays it with success. Richard Ray T, for example, will get the opening named after him, or a strong, famous tournament where a system was tried out and was successful will be where an opening gets its name. But anyway, London 1883, Mason versus Mackenzie, is where it shows up. Now, what you can do with a whole bunch of games like this, you have a whole bunch of famous players playing this thing. Famous players, I don't see any. Well, Byrne versus Marshall, Janowski, Moroshi, for example, right here, Fletcher. These are all strong players who played the opening, and you can trace the historical development of ideas. What's this opening about? What are they trying? You can trace the development of ideas by going over the games in chronological order. What you see here is annotation. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look. Block seems to do fairly well. Okay. Now, we can trace the historical development of an opening, or we can go all the way to the end and see who's playing it now. Well, who's doing what here? All right, we've gone to 2019, and we have this position. We can see from these stats here that it's fairly well balanced. And do we see any famous names over here? No. Well, Inkaryev is, yeah, this guy here, playing white, is pretty good. However, we want to be careful of what games we're selecting to have a look at. And these guys here are blitz games here, so there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And this game here is a rapid game. And black seems, so at slower time controls, it seems that black is doing reasonably well in this variation. So we'll go back and see. So we went a page back, again looking for big guys playing this thing. And we see no top tens, at least not in this variation. But set black is pretty good. The game isn't too long, and white wins. So we did select this variation, or did select a particular search in order to find out, you know, what white does. Okay, so do you guys see any big names here? Bellon Lopez might be okay. 2019 Gibraltar Open, and it's a slow chess game. So that's two games we could have a look at. So we'll go over here. We'll click that thing. And we've got the game. So you'll see down here, explore this opening, find similar games, and you could put this in your chess-based database if you did have them. We're not going to worry about that right now. Oh, come on, I don't want to do this again. Okay, it's loading up the game. All right, good. There we go. Okay. So d4. And d5. And bishop f4. So c5. So e3. Now, one of the things about playing c5 right here is that I'm taking advantage of the fact that bishop f4 signaled that you are going to leave the b pawn undefended. So c5 is played, which is a move I want to play anyway. And I'm going to be able to play a quick queen b6. So e3, which is part of our moves, there, c6, c3, knight f6, knight d2, and e6, knight f3, bishop d6, bishop g3, castles, bishop d3, and b6, knight e5. So we know that black is getting close, or white is with knight e5 is getting close, but the two moves that we need to watch out for are f4 and castles. Okay, so right here, there was a variance in what is played in the opening. What this can tell us is a couple of things. Is that Mr. Veldkamp wants to avoid theory, or he's unaware of theory. Anyway, he retreats his knight as opposed to playing bishop b7. But we shouldn't draw anything yet from this. But notice that here's what he wants to do. He wants to send his knight to f5 and take the bishop off, thereby gaining the advantage of the bishop pair. So knight e7, castles, bishop b7, completing his development and guarding the central square, and bishop h. So he said, hey, dude, I want to cripple your pawns at f6, and I want to pin your knight. So knight e4 says, you know what? I'm going to play f6, boot your knight out of the center, and play f5 as necessary. And remember what I said earlier about the fact that the bishop goes to b7 in order to have some control over the e4 square. So f3, okay, dude, get your pieces out of the center. And this is consistent with what white wants to do. First, he establishes a central pawn chain, a central strong point, d4, c3, e3. He then sets about mobilizing his e pawn. Knight d2, bishop d3. Knight d2, queen d2, and f6, knight g4, and knight f5. Well, we know what all this knight maneuvering was about, and white has a strategic choice to make. The position is balanced from the point of view of material. Both sides have the same quality of material, 2 bishops and a knight versus 2 bishops and a knight. So the quality of the pieces is the same. So it's going to, further activity is going to revolve around who can mobilize their pawn structure more effectively. Obviously, the piece on h4 is hanging. And so white is faced with, do I take on f5, double the pawns and send my knight to f2, which on one hand supports e4, but I should be careful about opening the e-file and enhancing the strength of the pawn at f5 and the bishop at b7 and the pawn at d5. So bishop e1. No, I'm going to play e4 eventually after some preparation, and your knight will have to leave the center. Okay, I'll attack h2 after, and when I play h5, I'll win your h2 pawn. And there's our stone wall formation. And so you might look at this position and say, well, dude, I don't understand this position. The guy goes and plays bishop f4, bishop g3, bishop e1, and then puts his pawn on f4. Didn't you play the London system to get your bishop on the outside of the pawn chain? Oh, yes, I did, but I'm going to prepare e4 and push your pieces back, and I want preserve my bishop. So rook c8, saying, okay, I'm going to play pawn takes pawn, h3, getting the pawn away from the bishop and queen battery. King h, saying, okay, I'll preserve the tension, but I'll play rook to g8 in the future, and I don't want to meet any stupid checks possibly on diagonal. Okay, knight h2. You see, okay, why play the London system, period? Well, you want a strategically complex game. I want to make you guys aware of the fact that before Magnus Carlsen came along and made this opening popular, a great chess strategist and former world champion candidate, Gata Kamsky, was playing the London system long before anybody knew that the London system was something to play. So if you want a player who has created or thought out most of the modern ideas in the London system, you should check out the games of Gata Kamsky. Now, Gata Kamsky was a world championship candidate who played Anatoly Karpov. In order to beat Karpov, you had to be a very good strategist. And so one of the attractiveness of the London system, one of the attractive features of the London system is the fact that for strategical players, the London system is a fantastic opening. So what of this maneuver with the knight to g4 and then to h2? Well, it's all about activity. And what's happening here is, since the position is closed, white can spend the time, so to speak, to reposition the knight. So the knight's going to eventually land on f3, and I'm going to possibly play g4. Notice how the strong point, c3, d4, e3, means that the bishop at b7 is still wondering what it's going to do. Granted, the e1 bishop also is wondering what it's going to do, but it might pop out on h4 or g3, depending on circumstance. So g5. Well, we know what's happening here. Your knight on h2 is only protected by the queen, so the pawn at f4 is pinned. Oh, sorry, the knight on h2 is only defended by the king. Well, after g4, the knight is protected twice, and now the g pawn is no longer pinned. Also, the knight has said, hey, dude, get your butt out of here. Knight takes pawn, very sharp. And now we can see why the king went to h8, because maybe he envisioned this sacrifice. So queen takes, pawn takes. Okay, I have two pieces, or I have two pawns for the piece. In addition to that, I have an attack on your queen, obviously, but I've mobilized my center, and I have two bishops. One thing you should remember is the piece should be sufficient against the two pawns, and so this attack is not correct. Sacrifice of a piece for two pawns. So queen goes to f2. So of course, in this situation, you would have to ask, well, isn't the e6 pawn hanging? Why don't I just take it? And so you would do a little analysis here and figure out that there will be a lot of initiative here after perhaps rook e8. I don't know, there might be something involving f3 and the discovery of the battery on knight on h2. I don't know. Anyway, queen goes to f2, pawn goes to e5, bishop goes to f5, rook goes to e8. All these moves can be traced to activation of the pieces. Then bishop b2, a5, restraining possibly b4, bishop back. Now there's going to be some mating-ish type of, or pressurizing moves. b5, bishop b3, attacking the d pawn, and queen there to c6. And all right, what white is doing, he's playing where black is not. So I have a bishop on b3, putting pressure, and you have a queen and bishop that are over on the queen side and not on the king side. So I have an extra piece, and I'm going to play where you are not. So bishop e7, freeing the rook of responsibility, guarding the f pawn. Queen h5, getting away from any discoveries. And it appears that after queen h5, the game is over. Okay, so what you as a player should do is you should go and get the database, chessgames.com if you like. Lead Chess is also good. And go and look at game after game, right? Go again and look at another game and another game. Certain ideas will start to appear frequently. You'll understand them, and then you'll be able to place one idea against the other. For example, in this game, we knew from looking at the best moves that you were supposed to play on move 8, bishop b7, and guard the knight. You were supposed to complete your development as opposed to moving the same piece in the opening twice. So knight e7 was played in order to prepare for some pressure on the king side. And what happened is black had a double-edged position, but lost the game. So we know that bishop b7 is a little bit better than knight e7, but we cannot, on one game, base our whole conclusion. Okay. All right, so let's go have one more look at something, and then we'll go on to a different variation. We'll go back one page. And see if there's anybody famous here. Okay. We find that there's some rapid games being played. We find that it was played in a slow tournament. The guy who's pretty good is this Ok Trong Song. One of the things that he's put a lot of ideas into the London system. One of the things that was pretty impressive when I did see some of his games, you know, how he did in his opponents. Another game that is pretty good is Epichenko versus Karyakin. You guys all know that Sergei Karyakin challenged for the World Championship a couple of cycles ago. Before Caruana, he was the candidate for the World Championship. And he could be world champion had he not had a mishap against Carlsen, because he was leading in the match. But Carlsen, being the player who he is a tremendous fighter. So Epichenko and Karyakin are pretty good. Troxong is pretty good. Stefanova is pretty good. And these two, Miss Musichuk has challenged for the World Championship, and it was played in the knockout tournament. And White won Stefanova. So again, 48 moves, pretty good. So we can see lots of stuff. By the way, when is the tournament starting? Somebody speak up.
4 minutes.
A few minutes, eh? Okay. All right. Oh, John M's playing. Okay. 23 moves. Draw. Maybe not something I want to see here. Okay, we'll look at this game by Nguyen Troxon here. Probably not. We're not going to look at the whole game, but we're going to quickly look at it. Yeah, I know the tournament starts in a few moves, in a few minutes. So those of you who intend to play in the tournament, you should make sure you're entered in the tournament. All right, so we'll go through the moves quickly. G4, G5, knight F3. Okay, these moves are interchangeable. Knight F3 and bishop F1. E6, E3, C5. Okay, so Block says I don't want to gambit this pawn, so I'll play E6. So the move order is kind of flexible. That's why I spent some time on the ideas behind getting to the formation. So C3, knight C6, knight D2, and bishop D6, bishop D3, and castles. And bishop D3, and here we are with our queen E7. Okay, none of this rook E8, none of this H6, none of this CD4, none of this B6. So, Meghashvili wants to quickly play for E5. This comes from the Batumi Olympiad in 2018, so this was a slow game, no rapid chess. This was played over the board. And knight E5. So here's something you should be aware of. Why does a knight go to E5? It goes to E5 following the simple rule that when your opponent is threatening to play E5, you should block it, or threatening to make a freeing move in the center. In this case, E5 will increase the activity of the C8 bishop and the black pieces in general. You should prevent your opponent from doing that. Thus, knight E5. So knight D7, a vigorous battle is being fought over the E5 square. Dude, you're going to get that knight out of E5. Well, aren't you letting me double the pawns? Well, yes, but my center will be strengthened. And interestingly enough, knight takes knight, pawn takes knight is nothing that black fears, because he gets to play E5 later on. And the C pawn at C6 supports the D5 square. And also, I can dissolve my double pawns by playing C5 to D4. So I am saying, with knight E7, you can help me out by doubling my pawns. So knight D7, no, I'm not going to help you out, and I'm not going to lose time by retreating. So knight takes knight. Queen takes knight. Oh, time to go. A lot of you have left. Okay, guys. I think you know what we might do is next week we'll continue with a few other variations of the London. So this is 2 weeks on the London, and I hope you have good luck in the tournament. I think I should probably get the link and join there. Sean, did you put the link in the in this chat? Send me the link and reach us then, and I'll go to the tournament as well. I might have to withdraw though at some point. Okay, stop the share. Hopefully all of you are in the tournament, ready to kick some butt. Oh, this is a Swiss tournament. Okay. Intermediate rapid. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. And 21, so I'll join. And I joined late. Okay, good. Yikes. A very active chat today. Woof! Guess choosing the London as an entertaining opening is the way to go. All right, who's here? 11 people are hanging out, so I should be careful about what I say. Brighton will pounce on it. Max will pounce on it. All right, let's have a look at the games. Whoa, we've got Tam 36. Is that Tamir? Ooh, watch out. If Tamir is in the tournament, watch out. Tamir Bulga. Yeah, Tamir Bulga 2060. I wonder if he's streaming on his own stream. Might be. Ooh, the killer is holding his own against Sanju. Okay. What is happening with the Dragon Master? Okay, it's a fork. Ooh, yikes. Max. Let's see. You demand, Max. You demand. Oh, forcing resignation. Okay, let's check out these games. You guys are still occasionally hanging too many pieces. Got to get out of that. You'll improve a couple of 100 points. Well, maybe 100 points or so as soon as you stop hanging pieces. Or at least hang them less frequently. Okay, Max has a crushing position against Dragon Master. Sun. Ooh, opposite colored bishop situation. Let's see, we got 2, 4, 5 versus 2, 4. Okay, this is a win for Sun. All he needs to do is pick off those weaknesses. Max is winning. Okay, so the Southerners are, this is unacceptable. This is a Canadian tournament. How come the Southerners are doing well? When you come up to the Canadian territory, whether it's in real life or in electrons, this is Canadian territory, you need to be spanked. I love you guys when you come to the class and all, but when you're playing back of the hand, well, come on, let's have a checkmate. Oh, dude, what is this? Ethan. Ah, yuck. Terrible technique. Okay. Sun has his patented passed pawn on the outside and imprisoned king. So he's choosing the simplest way of winning. Take all your opponent's material and win with your positional superiority. All right, good luck next round. Those of you who are still in the meeting. Glad to see you're hanging out with us, Max, even though you're in Tennessee and Brighton, hanging out. I think Brighton left the meeting though, but Max, it's good that you're still hanging
I'm
out.
here.
Oh, you are here, Brighton. Okay, that's great. Okay, those of you with 1 point, watch out for Eric Tam. He's, or sorry, Tamir Bulga. He's pretty good. Oh yeah, Max, you were in camp last week, so this week you're free of camp. So now you get to laze around and get bored. Yeah, for another month until school, you get bored. Yeah, we have the Calgary Stampede up here. We're in fun times after post COVID, so everybody is supposed to be partying, and our masks have come off, all sorts of good stuff. Ooh, Sun has a strategically won position, but I noticed the killer is doing. Oh, look at that, the third rank defense. This is what you're supposed to do when your opponent has a passed pawn in a rook ending. Not let the king connect with the pawns. However, there's rooks and bishops on the board, so the defense should not hold. But killer is resisting, and Max is 400 points stronger. So he ensures that there's going to be a draw. What do you mean? Let's see. Okay, all right. This should be, well, it should be lost because the two pass pawns are just too much. Yeah, Max is, or sorry, Sun is proceeding correctly. But look at that. And it's quite clear that the killer is not using a computer because he doesn't have any time to use one. And this position is now drawn. Unbelievable, eh? Look at that, Max. Oh, sorry, Son. You got to advance the pawns on squares the color of the bishop. Oh, it's not drawn. Oh, my bad. My bad. Oh, now it's drawn. Is it? Yes, it is. It's drawn. Do you know why? It should be a draw. Because it's a rook pawn. Okay, I'm out of line here. Black won't be able to prevent white from winning the H pawn. And once the H pawn is lost, the G pawn will be lost, and the knight pawn will queen. Looked like a draw though for a minute. There we go. Good technique, Max. Oh, sorry, good technique, Son. There we go. And the king is forced out. Nice win there, Brighton. Nice finish. Looks scary for a second, but okay. All right, let's see. Oh, Chelsea's here. Nice. Okay. Okay, watch out for Tanir Bulga there, guys. Max, Son, Brian. I wonder if Happy Waters is using a computer. He's got he's just this new player. He's from the south, so that's not good. And he should play his move instantly. Okay. Oh, come on. Like, come on. This uncalled for, Max? What do you mean? Anything south of the 49th is from the south. And all of you are weaker. uh, ah, was I saying he was cheating if I asked if he's using a computer? Maybe that was my bad. Yes, Max, you're probably right. I may have inadvertently suggested that. No, I didn't. Well, I wasn't thinking he was cheating. But, yeah, I guess I was. Anyway, where's his move? Did he like it shows that he's online? I see a green thing, but maybe I'll refresh this thing and maybe. No, I don't want to reload the site and my computer might crash. But he should have played a move by now. Come on. Oh, he didn't attend opening the opening examination that I had. I don't think he was in the Zoom meeting. Come on, it's casual. There's no rating on the line. This is just practice. Send him a text, Max, and I say, hey, dude, he's calling you out, and you're not answering. So, very strange. Maybe he looked at my rating and saw that it was so huge that he doesn't. If he plays anything, he's just toast, which is right. Oh, guys, those of you who are still in the meeting here, Brighton, and there's 11 of you still hanging out. I wanted to mention to you that a great London system player that you should be aware of is Eric Rosen. George?
Yeah.
Sure, let's do that. I'm finishing a chess lesson, but
Well, I'll give you a chance to finish your lesson.
anyway, Eric Rosen is a fantastic London system player, and I want to mention this to you as well. that if you were looking around for a white opening that consistently brings good results when you play it, I would recommend buying Eric Rosen's The London System course. Those of you who are serious about chess and playing an over-the-board play. It's a modest amount, but he'll give you everything there is to know about the London system. No, maybe not everything. He's probably got some secrets. Okay, Happy Waters is only 25 seconds left, so maybe he disconnected or he just doesn't want to play me. Thank you, Happy. Appreciate that. Oh, Allison. Yikes. All right. See, Max, what are you doing? Um, 4 versus 5. Oh, you were a little cavalier with your peewees, were you, Max? Okay. Okay. Let's see if he'll release the hound. Wow. Okay, Max, you're in front of everyone. All right, show us what you got there, Buck. Well, I can't say too much about the strategy here because Max is in the meeting, so I have to keep my yap shut. This is one of those situations where no matter how many tactical exercises you do, it's not going to help if you're strategically lost. Trying to construct a fortress. Man, gotta hand it to you. Ooh, yikes, you didn't want to see that. Maybe this end game should be in the end game class on Thursday. Interestingly enough, this is the most common end game that you can get is rook endings. The reason is because it takes so long for the rook to get developed. Why are rook endings occur so frequently? So we have two pass pawns versus no pass pawn. Oh, sorry, I'm about to be one favored pass pawn. Okay. Hmm. Ooh. Nice, Max. You're resisting. You're saying you want to win. Well, that's the way to do it. The opponent has given you a ton of counterplay. Active king, pursuit of the initiative, and pass on. And this is about to be 1-0. Ooh. Hey, Chelsea. It's nice to see that you're a Lee Trust supporter there. Good for you. Oh, and the game is over. Max takes it home. Johnny, you have to give it up. Oh, Max could lose on time here. No, not with an infinite. Nice comeback there, Max. Good use of the active king. I gotta hand it to you. You have been listening in some classes. Good for you. Or you just naturally know that active king is better than a pawn. Okay, so there's going to be some blood coming in the final rounds. Max is going against Tam. Sun is going to go against Brian. And I am going to rip Ethan Wang's head off. All right. Ooh, Ethan supporting Lee Chess. Good for you. Ah, yes. Didn't get a chance to cover this variation, but one of my students plays this line, so I sort of know. Sort of know what to do. Yep, sort of know what to do. Oh my goodness, Max. I think I just know how to play. Nice. I know how to play this. I'm just a transformer. Okay, what do you want to do? Should I try this Jababa London? I have no idea what it's supposed to do. Does it work against? No. No. Okay, so now you have 6. Okay, one of the other virtues is supposed to be necessary. My addition is E6. Okay. So that's up. Yeah. Send this buck right into E5.